Hi, my name is Terry Pentremoli, and I am the director of Tri-C Jazz Fest Cleveland. We are honored to partner with the Cleveland International Film Festival on the presentation of this extraordinary film, Topowa, Never Give Up. I'm delighted to host this presentation and this post-film discussion and want to introduce you to the distinguished panel. Composer, trumpeter, NEA jazz master, artistic and managing director of jazz at Lincoln Center, Wynton Marsalis. Film co-directors Philip Sansom and Inigo Gilmore. Film producer Rupert Sansom. The founder of Brass for Africa, Jim Trott. And trombonist and one of the star student teachers in the film, Julius Namugera. Welcome all. It's lovely to see you. So I'm going to start because after I watched the film, I certainly had a billion questions. And it starts with Brass for Africa. So Jim Trott, let's start with you. How did your journey from airline pilot to founder of Brass for Africa begin, and how is it going 10 years later?
Hi, Terry. Well, I think it's fair to say I would never imagine that I'd be sat here talking with a panel like this, and particularly with Wynton and Julius. This was not a planned venture. I didn't wake up and think I'm going to start a non-profit or get involved in a music charity. Really wasn't that way. It came about through circumstance initially. As you mentioned, I'm a pilot, and I've lived and worked in Africa as well as flying there regularly. I'm also a keen brass player. I play the trumpet. I can't really say I play the trumpet with Wynton in the same room, but I have a trumpet. and my kids are musicians. And almost 12 years ago now, my young son, playing in a junior brass band here in England, the band had about 30 rather old, tarnished, dented, much loved, much used instruments that were surplus to requirement. And they were going to get thrown out. So I didn't want to see that wastage, and I said, look, don't throw them out. I'm going to Uganda. It's one of the favourite places that I go. I said, I'm sure we'll get a second use for these instruments. So I went out and I got introduced to some really amazing people. One of them's on the screen here. He was very young when I first met him, but also a chap that you see in the film called Bosco Sagawa. And I said, we've got these 30 instruments. Can we use them? He said, yeah, definitely. So long story short, we managed to ship those instruments to Kampala. And we put them in a place called the Good Shepherd Home, which is a poor home, an orphanage. It caters for those that are really down on their luck, disadvantaged, that are sort of surviving on the margins of society, elderly and orphans. And we, as ex-street children, we put those instruments in there. And basically, I thought that was the end of my involvement. But I continued to visit, actually, and on every trip I went to the Good Shepherd Home. And I saw something really incredible happen before my eyes. There was quite a profound change in these children that were getting access to music. Something really magical was happening. And it just drew me to try and get the teaching better and try and support that more. These children had something. They had self-confidence. They could look me in the eye. They'd play for me. I'd have 30, 40 pairs of eyes looking at me to see if I was looking at them. And I just kind of got drawn into it that way. The charity then developed with that orphanage became overrun, really. And so the missionaries of the poor ran this orphanage. They split it in two. The boys went to another one and they said, Jim, we want the brass bands. We found some more instruments. We took those to the other orphanage, and it started to grow organically. I think a seminal point was in 2014 when we identified 10 young musicians, mid-teens, Julius on the screen here being one of them, and 9 of his cohort, his colleagues. And we commissioned a brass foundation in brass teaching course, and we started working with them to, so that they could learn how to teach others. And then we had this little group of teachers so we could start spreading out and working with other organizations and finding work for them to do as they went through schooling. And again, it just kind of grew organically. And what started to become really exciting was, music's the key. It's our integrity. It's the hook. It's why Julius comes to band. It's why everybody on that film goes to band. It's music that hooks them in and draws them in. But then what we can do with that music became really exciting. We could really tackle some societal issues and personal development issues, which sort of led us to where we could have the most impact through music, and it's addressing particular needs in the communities as the community sees them. And those are things things like gender equality, disability inclusion, workplace readiness. Youth unemployment in these areas is very high. If we can up those soft skills, those amazing life skills you get through music, then we can give them better life chances and opportunities to get work. And also community empowerment. Music's a very powerful tool that's kind of disarming. We can work in some really thorny areas dealing with HIV, juvenile detention centres, and it's a non-confrontational way of getting things through. And so it grew from that, just having those initial instruments donated, to where we've seen these incredible changes in the young people and the communities that we're privileged to work with, and you know, culminating in these showcase things like arriving at the Cheltenham Festival with these 12 amazing young musicians to meet someone like Wynton. So, and that's the long story short, believe me.
It's wonderful. And it really is, I think, so successful because it comes from such a beautiful place. It comes from caring and will. Like, there's obviously a really strong will to make something happen, and that will being fed by the spirit and what the students received things. It's just so terrific. Julius, you are a pretty big star in this film, and it's so wonderful to witness your enthusiasm for this music. I want you to talk a little bit about your experience and how music became your passport, especially jazz.
Hi, Terry. Yeah, it's good to be here talking about the really story that I want to talk about most of the time, because it really inspired me a lot where I came from. So I started playing my trombone when I was 13 years, and that's 1 year before, and then Jim came in 2014, and that's when I started reading music. From that moment, I think before, when I went to the organization, I was really, really shy, sad, and all that. But when I started playing my trombone, started learning music, I started getting different skills from it. After that, I decided, I was like, let me start playing jazz. We are introduced to jazz, and that's where I started seeing different people online, people figuring out playing good stuffs, and I was like, I want to be like them. The other thing is getting the love with my friends and connecting with each other, and this is what I got from jazz, because all the time we had to play solos, share our stories, play solos, and that's where I became really confident. I never knew that I would be moving out borders, going anywhere. So in the way I could explain this is, I started knowing that my instrument is my passport when we started, playing in local areas, in our places, going to weddings. And with that moment, I was like, this is my passport. This is my passport, because it takes us to play music to different functions. And then after that, and then that's where we got that tour. I got the opportunity to join the group that was coming to UK and perform at Cheltenham Festival with Wynton Marsalis. And that's where I knew that music is it's going to be my passport.
That's so special. That's great. Jim, how did that opportunity for the Cheltenham Festival arise, and how were you able to engage the great Wynton Marsalis?
Yeah, let me unmute. Sorry, I was muted. It's still quite unbelievable to me that happened. I was very fortunate to meet Wynton the year before. We have a mutual friend, the most remarkable woman called Ursula Jones, and I think she's known Wynton since he was in short pants, maybe for a long time. And she got really engaged in what we were doing, and she brought us together. So Wynton and I had a lovely dinner with her, and we talked, and so he was aware. And then Alison Balsam, the trumpet virtuoso, is a friend of mine, and she became a friend through becoming part of the charity and our patron. And she took on the artistic director position for the prestigious Cheltenham Music Festival. And she also knew Winton. And then it was like, she wanted Brass for Africa, and she wanted, Winton. She wanted to make the festival so special and engage all those people and things she loved. And so she helped pull all of that together. We weren't quite sure it was all going to work out in the end, but it really did. So a little bit of serendipity, I think, and quite a lot of luck. And obviously, the good grace of Winton to join us.
It's good things happen to good people for good reasons. Winton, we see very little of you in the first half of the film, but your presence looms large. The reverence the kids have for you is so touching and sweet. In your travels, you always discover and encourage young players. How different was this experience, and how much the same was this experience for you?
Well, that's a good question, and I want to first say I'm honored to be on with Jim, Julius, of course, to talk about the music and the impact that it has. It's the same and it's different. It's like if you have a family with 5 kids, they're different, but they're the same. So my father was a teacher and an educator. I grew up around musicians and music and teaching. I grew up in the neighborhoods in the community. I'm from New Orleans. I play a brass instrument. So Jim and I have a lot in common, and it's really a story that goes across time. Also, I'm afraid to fly. So him being a pilot, we had a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. And he was talking about Ursula Jones. I met her when I was in my early 20s. Her husband was the great Philip Jones. When I was in high school, I listened to Philip Jones brass ensembles. He's one of the great maestros of brass, of the great brass ensemble, and a fantastic trumpeter and brass player. So we have the family of brass. I'm not going to look down on Julius because he plays trombone, but trumpet players, we still working out our very complex relationship with that instrument. But I want to say that it's the same in that Jim broke it down for you. He came, he didn't know what would happen. He decided to extend his hand, and he discovered that people reach out and grab that hand. My father did that many times. There's always kids in my house. It was always, and my father didn't have instruments to give anybody. He'd teach people. If they were broke like him, he taught them. If they had money, he taught them. He was a universal humanist, and in that spirit, they're wonderful people and great people and deep humanity everywhere you turn. They're creative people, human beings. We're the most creative things on earth. If you look at all the things we create, we were talking earlier about how fascinating it is that we can get on this piece of technology and now we can talk across nations. Well, somebody came up with that. And who was that person? Who are the people that are the components of all the technology we use? There's all kinds of people. So in that way, understanding what Jim was doing, and of course the trajectory of Brass for Africa, and the kind of depth of the passion of what he did, and how natural and human it is really connected with to what Philip Jones did. He published music. When I was a kid, I would get Philip's music and check out everything he did in that tradition. And then when I get to see Julius, well, I just want to hug him. It's just like the love and the depth of feeling I have for him from a human standpoint. It's not because he's sweet and good-natured and all these kind of cliches people have about somebody who's sweet-natured. Because when you're teaching people and you're working with younger people, a lot of them are not good-natured. They can be your own kids. In his case, he happens to be a magic man. So, yes, you want to hug him, but that's him. And teaching of people is you're not going to always get people like him. He's a rarity. And, of course, when I got around the kids, there's many different kind of kids. There's many different types of information. So, yeah, I didn't have a lot of time with them, but I loved them. And it's a natural love that comes out of musicianship, humanity, the kind of connection between a Black American and a person from Africa, even though we're very different. We come from very different traditions and culture, but we have a similarity that is diasporic. But it doesn't mean that when I'm in Switzerland or in Japan or in China, I love kids any less, because I don't. I've hugged some brothers in China and went to their homes and listened to great brass playing. One of my students, who's a kid, is one of the great band instructors in Japan right now. I love him as much, as I could love Julius. So I don't want to get too deep into the whole kind of coloration thing, because that's a Western thing that people love to get involved in all of that. But that's secondary or tertiary. The human part is first. And when they start playing and the music and just see everything that's getting together. And Jim, he's a trumpet player, you know, so he's trying to do the best he can do, and how soulful and basic he is about it. When it hits the press, or when people start to talk about it, it becomes something that's cliched, like the rest of somebody from England, or white dude, or Afro-American, or black dude. A lot of that is fake. The human impulse and what's real, he told you, his son was playing, he was looking at the instrument, it's all fundamentals. And he was like, yeah, look at this, well, I could do this. And then boom, we're here talking about it. I wish I had my technology so y'all could see me, so I'm sorry. I want to apologize for that. But my intention is still the same.
We wish we could see you too, but that was beautiful. And really what you're talking about is love. And that's what we see in this film so starkly. It's just amazing. This is directed to the film team, Phil, Inigo, and Rupert. How did you get involved, and what were some of the most memorable moments? You can also talk about what the challenges were. I'm sure there were many.
Yeah, hi Terry. I think Inigo was going to try and kick off this one.
Okay.
Yeah. Terry, this all began really with a meeting through a friend who introduced me to Jim Trott. And I used to live in Africa for many years, about 6 years, and I go back and forth very regularly. So I knew Uganda, but I'd never heard about this extraordinary charity. And I went to meet Jim, and it blew me away when he told me they'd achieved already in a few years in bringing the brass instruments, getting Brass for Africa going, not only in terms of the playing, but how they were transforming people's lives, you know, through brass music. And that was something really phenomenal that I thought was an amazing happening. And the progress they'd made there, the achievements they'd made was phenomenal. And I'd seen some short video clips of some of the players, and I'd heard about Julius and so on. And then it came about that it was a possibility of them going on this tour to the UK for the first time, and hopefully, you know, getting to play Ronnie Scott's in London, the famous jazz club, and also in Cheltenham with the great Winter Marsalis, who was already Julius's hero, and someone who inspired him and many of the other musicians. So this sounded like an extraordinary story to tell, and a great opportunity to tell a really profound, moving story and inspire other young people. And so I'd met Phil quite around that time, just shortly before that time when we discovered about the tour. And Phil and Rupert had great success making music documentaries before, which they can tell you about themselves. But and that seemed to be a great fit that we could make this film together. So we literally had to go into production because it was about to happen. The tour was only a few months away. And so we just threw our weight into it. We went out to Uganda. As I expected, the characters, the Julius, Samaya, and others who you see in the film were not only extraordinary musicians, but also extraordinary characters who came from some really challenging situations in their lives. I mean, Katwe slum, I've been all across Africa. It's really one of the toughest slums that you could grow up in Africa, and the challenges that you face. But they weren't talking about that. They were talking about their music and how it inspired them and how it changed their lives. And that was so important. And Winton in the film himself said something very profound. He says, it's not about where you come from, it's where you're going that's important. And that's very much their sentiment. That was their feeling. And it was truly inspirational to follow their stories. We did 2 short trips to capture those moments to Uganda. But as you see in the film, Julius, Samaya, Gilbert, Tadeo, his own story is extraordinary, having lost his limbs as a baby. They all literally helped to lift this film to a phenomenal outcome, where you go on this journey with them, beginning in Uganda and then all the way to the UK, to Ronnie Scott's and Cheltenham. And I think the journey lent itself to making a phenomenal film, which I think, you know, as others will hopefully testify, is really truly inspiring and moving. in what it was. And there were obviously huge challenges making it, especially in such a short space of time. But Phil and Rupert, I'm sure, would like to address that as well.
Wow. Yeah, thanks, Inigo. I mean, it was just such a privilege to actually be part of this journey. I mean, as filmmakers, that's what you're here for. You're the conduit to tell these incredible stories. And this is very much the story of Brass for Africa, Jim, Julius, and those musicians. But as Inigo said, we had a chance encounter ourselves, and amazing things come from nothing sometimes. And we'd had a very successful year as a film company. And again, mentioned we've been making music documentaries with the likes of Sky Arts and Blondie, and we were looking for a project really to take up next. And when Inigo mentioned this, it just pricked my ears up as something that just sounded like something absolutely incredible to tell. And we jumped on a plane, went out to meet Jim, and ended up in Uganda. Before I knew it, I was meeting Julius and people we'd heard about and seen on YouTube, and they were just so welcoming, really open arms. And I think there was obviously a little bit of who are these guys coming over to tell this story? Are they going to tell it the right way? It's a very difficult thing to balance and judge, and it's such a personal thing to open up yourself to being filmed. And for Julius and many of the others, never really been on screen or on camera before, so they did open their world to us in an incredibly open way. We were very, very lucky that Julius gave us so much time, even whilst he was on tour, doing this, incredibly intense period of music performing, leading his band, and auditioning for the British Army. It was just absolutely amazing how much effort everybody put into the film. But, these things don't happen without, really throwing your oar in. And the more I saw of what had been achieved by Jim and obviously what had been achieved by these young musicians, it encouraged me as a filmmaker to really, get involved even further. And by the time we'd spent, a few days there, I just turned to my brother and said, this is something we've got to do. We've got to make it happen no matter what. I really want to create this, hopefully this film that can reach further for the charity and really bring some attention and tell this story in the best possible way to an incredible cause, and really shine a light on the work and the people that's being done there. So yeah, we rolled up our sleeves. I pretty much cameramaned the whole film as well, and ended up actually editing it during lockdown. We were very lucky that we managed to capture and complete filming the year that we did, because obviously, things have been so difficult in the year after, but thankfully we had the footage there to edit. And now, being here and getting to share that with the world is real vindication of the effort that everybody did on this project. And yeah, there were incredible challenges. It's not an easy place to film, but the support network that Jim has there, and the people that know the charity, and obviously the musicians in those local areas, meant that we had, never had any trouble. We were always incredibly well looked after, and just such an amazing community spirit, even in some of the most incredibly tough places to live, as Inigo mentioned. I mean, the things we saw when we were there were just incredibly heartbreaking, really, to be watching whilst you're filming. But that's day-to-day living there, really, and it's incredible to see how resilient these people are and how much they get on with it. And when the opportunity arises, they grab it with both hands, and that's something we can all do. So I remember particularly filming with Samaya in her house, and seeing where she practiced with her siblings in one room and her parents in another, and it was her actually who came up with the title for us, because we'd all been out there thinking about what could we possibly call this film, because it was so fast, really. We knew the tour was happening in almost a month's time, so we had to get on it. And we were filming live as it was all really unfolding. So finding the narrative was kind of something that I felt was going to happen naturally. I was hoping it would. And in one interview with Samaya, she said, Topowa, stay on the track. And we asked her what that meant. And she said, well, that means never give up in Ugandan. And we were like, well, there we go. That sums it all up for us, really. And that gave us our theme, and it gave us our title, and it was a really magical moment that kind of brought everything together. But so many highlights, really, of that whole trip. And just to see the faces of everybody when they finally came to the UK and got on the plane for the first time, having never left, the town, let alone the country, it was amazing. There's friends there that I will hopefully keep for a lifetime. So it's been our privilege really to fund the film and to make it happen. And just an incredible local crew we worked with out there as well. But Rupert can tell you a little bit more about some of the logistics. But Inigo and myself, we were very lucky to have him, to be perfectly honest, to organise and corral everything into shape. But you got to stick to it. And Winton as well, even after playing a whole festival show, still gave us time in his dressing room after, about 11:30 in the evening. Everyone was tired, but we still got that interview, and it really made the whole film kind of come full circle from having spoken to Julius in his small little room in Catway with a poster of Winton on his wall, to then being on stage pulling off one of the most incredible trombone solos I've witnessed. An absolute joy, and I really hope that it does so well for everybody involved.
Yeah. Well, I mean, challenges-wise, Terry, there were a few challenges here and there. I mean, putting a production like this into motion on pretty much, within 3 or 4 weeks was a challenge. And I think time was our biggest challenge, actually, putting this together. But once we had our crew from London, we took 2 other crew members with us from London, and we took them over to Uganda. And we got, as Phil said, a small crew in Kampala who were amazing, actually. Our fixer in Uganda really helped us with a lot of local crew. And we had a really tight, friendly crew in Kampala, and working with Brass for Africa team as well. We managed to pretty much plan the whole shoot within 2 weeks. So it was a challenge. But I think the hardest thing for us as a production company actually was the UK section. We had a bit more time putting the schedule together to shoot in Kampala, so we had a really good rhythm and a schedule to stick to. But when it got to the UK, we were all a bit frazzled and fried from running around various locations in Uganda. So when it got to the UK, we were kind of a bit under the cosh here and there to make things happen. But everyone gave 110%, and just all the crew that we used were brilliant, and it just all came together, and just it's such an inspirational story. We just felt we had to be part of it, and we did all we could to make it happen. But even the edit itself was actually one of the toughest challenges for us. Was really trying to find the narrative, trying to get all these stories into one very engaging piece. So that took a bit of work. It took us a while to really identify the key themes and how they will work together. So I think we must have sent Jim and both Phil and Inigo, we must have sent quite a few different variations of the film. But we got there in the end. It went from a 4-hour film eventually into an hour 20, which is always the way. But yeah, it came out really nice, and I'm just so happy that festivals are picking it up now. And we won our first festival at Rain Dance back in November last year. We won at the Berlin Independent Festival this year, and we're now at Cleveland. We're building and allowing the film really to do what it's meant to do, and bring that attention and that kind of just showing the world really what Brass for Africa and how amazing these guys are. So we're proud, and it's great to be here, and it's we can build from here. Go on and on for Brass for Africa. So yeah, it's been a great privilege working with everyone.
Well, the team is extraordinary. If I had to, embark on some kind of project, I think I'd want to have every single one of you involved in it. Julius, I know that you love this jazz. I know I loved watching you and your friends watch Winton play. The expressions on your face, you guys had your hands on your hearts. You rode every single note with him. What's your next big dream?
My next dream, really, first of all, I want to continue learning my trombone and getting better and better. And also, after here right now, I think in like 3 months, I'll be doing my sound engineering course. So yeah, it's still see where I'm going, and it's really good. I have love for music, and forever I will be doing it. It has done so much in my life.
It does so much for all of us. So, Winton, what I hear when I hear everybody talk here is I hear love, I hear will and desire, I hear grit, I hear real trust. And those are things that are so important in this music. And so I'd like you to talk a little bit about that if you could.
Well, I think the music, jazz specifically, especially if you're really trying to play it, gives us the opportunity to converse with one another. We celebrate different personalities. You hear everybody speaking from their perspective. Philip's talking. Rupert spoke from his perspective. I wish I'd spent more time with them, actually, now that I hear him talking. Everything was very quick for me. You know what Jim is saying, and you know what Julius is saying, and we're all trying to just it's really a symphony of intentions, a symphony of creativity, a symphony of, and jazz is a conduit. It allows us to be free to meet each other on a common ground, to nurture that common ground, and to seek the equality of creativity, which everyone in the world has. So maybe I play faster than you, or maybe you play higher than me, or maybe you can hear harmonies better than me. Maybe I have better rhythm. Nobody can do everything better than everybody. Even Charlie Parker, the greatest improviser of the modern era, Louis Armstrong, the greatest improviser era before that, you find, and when you hear their philosophy, they're the most human. Louis Armstrong loved people, and he surely was outplaying everybody. He was creating room and space for people. He would play with musicians all over the world. So I think you hear in this collaboration, all the sacrifice people are willing to make, just what Jim, just everything people are willing to do in order to change the mythology of human beings. Because this is a deep story. And in terms of what Julius is saying, man, we're looking for sound engineers. So, you know, we might have to bring you over to New York one of these times. I got a good man you could study with. But hey, don't laugh. You know, that's how the world is a certain way. I'm gonna be long gone from this earth, and you're gonna still be out there hitting it. You're gonna say, man, I talked to my man and he told me this, and that's really how life is. And you know, we're all interconnected, and I think the film demonstrates that in the stories that we're hearing from everybody. It demonstrates how a man goes somewhere, sitting, listening to his son as a pilot, goes out and says, hey, man, I can do this. He could have just as easily had that idea and not did anything. Then they said, well, hey, man, we could make a film out of this. And you know, let's get together and let's do this. And all of a sudden, man, here we are, Rupert and them, Philip, man, they out there filming and they looking at stuff and they saying, and I didn't know Julius had a poster of me up in his room of something that ugly might scare you. And he's a trombone player too. And you know, we hear it's just the whole kind of symphonic relationship, the tapestry of things that is humanity. And the human story is a broad and deep and rich story, and we all are born in midstream anyway. So we're fulfilling. I just wish I would have played better. That's my only wish. I'm sorry, Julius, for what I was playing. I'm gonna make it up to you. The next time you hear me play, I'm gonna be up on it, man. And you know, with Jim, I'm still trying to get over that flying, man. I need another lesson. You know, when Jim and I were first talking, yeah, we were talking about Brass for Africa, but I was really trying to get him to give me some pointers to get over my phobia. You know, and we all need to be healed. We all have things and problems, and we can all heal each other in different ways. So I think it's fantastic what Jim has done to use his ability and his agency and the things he can do to create more opportunity. And Julius, he's creating opportunity too. He's trying to develop things and do his thing, and all the kids, you know. And I mean, we're talking about my film crew. They did fantastic. I needed to hang with y'all a little more, man. But that's all right the next time.
Anytime, Winton, anytime.
Yeah, man. Come on, let's make it happen.
Let's do it.
Come on, man. We're going to do it. We said we're going to do it. We're not joking. Y'all gonna see Julius up in the house of swing on 59th Street, Engineer Records. Be careful. All right, you laughing? Watch what I'm telling you. You know, I say that, I joke sometimes. I will see a kid in a school. I would say, maybe a kid be 9 or 10 years old. I would say, watch out. You better watch this. Boy, 20 years later, look out. They playing all kind of horn out here. And I always make them so, okay, Julius, let's see. You could be the CEO of something, man, with your personality. People follow you. I'm ready to follow. I'm serious. I'm ready to follow you, man. You know, they said you was lovable, but they didn't tell the truth enough. And being lovable, and, you know, you playing trombone, you struggling with that instrument. Just that is an act of mercy. I still want to convert you to the trumpet. You can always go up the food chain. I'm going to stop acting crazy. I'll just go on and on. But I think it's wonderful in the most natural of ways, you know. And just like we on here, we clowning, it's just that natural. Jim said, hey, let me do this, and then we doing it. Then all the trials and tribulations that you have to go through, yeah, he's willing to go through that. And all the trials and tribulations, Rupert, he's willing to go through it. With Julius, he's willing to go through it. That's what we got to do. And Terry, you're willing to go through it too. You're sitting here listening to this. I'm going to stop right now.
I can't think of a better way to end this, but I'm sad we have to end it. But it was so beautiful to listen to all of you speak. And I just want to say this movie is wonderful because it's a remarkable story. It's superbly done. There is so much heart in the intention. This was such an honor. I thank all of you for joining. I hope this movie gets the attention of millions and millions of people. Thank you.
All right, now.
Thank you, Terry.
Topowa!
All right,
Topowa!